The forest was quiet that night, yet alive with a strange energy. Mist clung to the trees like silver veils, and the river ran swift and restless, its waters rushing over stones that glimmered in the pale moonlight. Ilara had always felt at home in these woods. Her cottage, small and humble, sat at the forest's edge, where the trees began to thin and the river curved gently. She loved the calm and the solitude, the way the wind whispered secrets no one else could hear. That night, though, the forest did not feel calm. A sudden sound broke through the usual chorus of owls and rustling leaves, a sharp, desperate cry. Ilara's heart thumped. It was not a sound she had heard before. It was small, fragile, and frightened. Without thinking, she grabbed her cloak and ran toward the riverbank, her boots slipping on the damp soil. The river was swollen from the storms that had passed through the kingdom in recent days. Rainwater surged angrily, tossing branches and debris in its wake. Through the dark, she saw a small shape struggling against the current. A tiny wolf pup clung to a log, its fur matted and soaked, its eyes wide with fear. "Ilara," she whispered to herself, though no one was there. She waded into the water, careful with every step, feeling the icy pull of the current against her legs. She stretched out her hands. "It's okay. I'll help you." The pup whimpered, its small body trembling. It was a dangerous moment, one that could have cost her life. But she did not hesitate. She reached the pup and cradled it against her chest. Its little heart beat fast, and it pressed itself against her as if it already trusted her. She felt the warmth of its fur seep into her gloves, a tiny spark of life in the stormy night. By the time she made it back to the riverbank, she was drenched, her hair plastered to her face. The pup clung to her, shaking and exhausted. Ilara wrapped it in her cloak, holding it close to her chest as she ran home. Each step was a struggle through the mud and tangled roots, but she felt no fear now, only determination. When she reached her cottage, she set the pup on a pile of blankets near the hearth. The fire had been dim, but now it crackled and flared as she warmed her hands. The pup's small eyes followed her every move. Ilara smiled softly. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you here." She sat near the fire, holding the little wolf and stroking its damp fur. She did not know why, but she felt an odd connection to this tiny creature. It was as if the forest itself had sent it to her. She could not explain why her heart ached with a strange longing, or why she felt as if this small life depended on her not just for survival, but for something far more important, something beyond her understanding. The night passed slowly. The storm continued outside, but inside her cottage there was warmth and quiet. The pup dozed against her chest, finally finding some comfort. Ilara watched it, her mind racing with thoughts. Wolves were not just animals of the forest, they were symbols of power and wildness. Legend said that those who were chosen by the wolves were marked by fate. She shivered at the thought, though she did not know why. Morning came in a soft wash of gray light. The storm had passed, leaving the forest fresh and dripping. Ilara woke to an unusual silence. The pup stirred, licking her hand gently, but something felt different. A low growl echoed outside. She frowned and moved to the window. Her eyes widened in shock. The riverbank she had crossed the night before now seemed alive with shapes. Wolves, dozens, perhaps hundreds, stood at the edge of the forest. Their eyes gleamed like amber flames. They were not ordinary wolves. Each one seemed larger, stronger, almost unreal. They did not move toward her aggressively, yet they did not leave either. They simply waited, their gazes fixed on her cottage. Ilara's heart raced. She had never seen anything like this. She stepped back, instinctively holding the pup closer. It looked up at her, wagging its tiny tail, but it too seemed aware of the pack outside. Ilara swallowed hard. Something had changed. She had saved this little creature, yes. But what had she done to call all these wolves here? A breeze swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves. Among the wolves, one stood apart. It was the largest, with fur as dark as midnight and eyes that seemed to glow with intelligence and awareness. It stepped forward slowly, each movement deliberate and controlled. Ilara felt a strange pull in her chest, a mixture of fear and fascination. She could not look away. The pup whined softly and scampered toward the door, pressing itself against her legs. Ilara bent down to pick it up, but the largest wolf stopped at the edge of the clearing and tilted its head. Its eyes met hers. She felt in that gaze something she could not describe, an acknowledgement, a question, and perhaps even a challenge. It was as if the forest itself had sent this creature to test her. Hours passed in tense silence. The wolves did not attack. They did not retreat. They simply stayed, watching her, waiting. Alara tried to go about her morning chores, bringing water to the hearth, preparing a simple breakfast, all the while keeping an eye on the pack outside. Every movement she made seemed to ripple through the air, and the wolves responded subtly, the head of the pack twitching its ears, others shifting their weight. By midday, Alara realized something incredible. The pup was not alone in drawing them here. The pack seemed connected to it and through it to her. She knelt beside the little wolf, whispering softly, "You're not just a little creature, are you? You're part of something much bigger, and now I'm part of it too." A sudden rustle from the forest made her flinch. One of the wolves stepped forward, its gaze intense. Then another followed. Soon they began to move with a strange precision, forming a protective circle around her cottage. Alara felt her pulse quicken. She realized that these wolves were not ordinary animals. They were guardians, or perhaps something older than the kingdom itself. She glanced at the pup, which seemed to shiver with excitement rather than fear. Alara whispered, almost to herself, "What have I done?" The rest of the day passed in a surreal haze. Villagers from nearby settlements came to the edge of the forest, drawn by tales of the wolves, but none dared approach. Even from a distance, they could feel the ancient power emanating from the pack. Alara remained inside her cottage, tending to the pup, watching the wolves silently. She felt no fear, only awe, and a growing sense of responsibility she could not yet name. Night fell again, and the forest seemed to hum with energy. The pack remained, their eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. Alara lit the hearth and sat close to the pup, stroking its fur. It nestled against her, warm and trusting. She realized she could not turn away from this destiny, whatever it might be. Something in her had changed. Saving the pup had done more than save a life. It had awakened something within her, something connected to the wild and mysterious forces of the forest. As she drifted toward sleep, she thought she heard a whisper through the wind, a voice older than the trees, older than the river itself. It was not frightening, but full of weight and meaning. "You have chosen, and now the forest has chosen you." Alara clutched the pup closer, unsure if she welcomed this fate or feared it. Outside, the pack howled in unison, a sound that echoed through the trees and over the river, wild and mournful and beautiful. It was a call that could not be ignored, a summons to a destiny that she had only just begun to understand. And in the heart of the forest, the largest wolf lingered, eyes bright and knowing, as if watching not just her but the future itself unfold. The morning light spilled over the forest like a soft veil, and Alara awoke to a strange stillness. The fire in her hearth had burned down to glowing embers, leaving the cottage dim and warm. The pup stirred beside her, stretching its small body and licking her hand with tiny wet tongue. She smiled, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. But something was different. The forest outside was no longer simply alive with birdsong and wind. The hundreds of wolves she had seen the day before now surrounded her cottage completely, their bodies tense and silent, forming a living wall. Their eyes, bright and intelligent, watched her with unwavering focus. Even from inside, she felt the weight of their attention, a quiet demand she could not ignore. Alara's pulse quickened. She had never felt anything like it, an awareness, a presence, as if the forest itself had grown eyes. She stepped to the window, holding the pup close. The largest wolf stood in the clearing, its black fur rippling in the morning breeze. Its eyes met hers again, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. It was as if the creature could see not just her body but her very soul. Tentatively, she opened the door, keeping the pup in her arms. The pack did not advance or attack. Instead, they shifted their weight, giving her space. The largest wolf stepped forward, its gaze never leaving hers. Its movements were deliberate, measured, and powerful. Alara felt a strange recognition stir in her heart, an unexplainable pull she could not resist. You are not ordinary," she whispered, her voice trembling. The wolf tilted its head as if acknowledging her words. The pup barked softly, its tiny voice breaking the tension. The pack remained silent, their eyes following every motion. Suddenly, the largest wolf crouched, lowering its body in a movement that was both graceful and commanding. Alara froze. Then, before she could blink, a ripple of light shimmered over its form. The wolf stretched, shivering, and the fur seemed to flow into shadows and light. Slowly, impossibly, it began to shift. Limbs lengthened, muscles reshaped, until before her stood a man. Not fully human, yet not entirely beast. His hair was black as midnight and his eyes glowed like amber fire. His presence radiated authority, danger, and an unspoken sadness. Ilara stumbled backward, clutching the pup to her chest. What are you?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I am Kalen," the man said, his voice deep and melodic, like the forest itself speaking through him. "And you, Ilara, have changed the fate of this forest." Her heart pounded in her chest. I saved the pup, that's all." Kalen's lips curved slightly, a hint of both sadness and amusement. "That pup is no ordinary creature. It is the key to a curse that has bound me and my pack for centuries. By saving it, you have awakened the bond that ties us to this world, and to you." Ilara took a step back, still unsure whether to trust him. "A curse? What do you mean?" Kalen looked away, his gaze shifting to the forest beyond. "Long ago my ancestors protected this kingdom, guarding the balance between humans and the spirits of the wild. A queen, jealous of our power, cursed us. We were bound to the forest in the forms you see. The pup you saved is the first of a new generation, a chance to undo what was done." Ilara's mind spun. The wolf pup, the pack, the transformation, it all felt like a dream. "And you expect me to help?" Kalen's gaze returned to hers, steady and piercing. "Yes, but it is more than helping. By saving the pup, you have stepped into a role you cannot ignore. You are now part of this bond, part of the forest's fate." The weight of his words settled on her shoulders. She had always lived a simple life, caring for her small home and the forest around it. She had never imagined being part of a story that spanned centuries, that involved magic, curses, and creatures of legend. And yet here she was, holding the pup, staring into the eyes of a man who was both wolf and human, and realizing that her life had changed forever. Kalen stepped closer, the air around him seeming to hum with energy. Ilara felt a strange warmth, a connection that was impossible to explain. It was as if the forest itself recognized him, and now in saving the pup it recognized her too. "You do not need to decide now," Kalen said gently, "but you must understand the danger. Forces beyond this forest will seek the pup. They will try to claim it, and in doing so they may harm you as well. The bond is not just power, it is responsibility. And there is something else. A feeling I cannot yet name, but it grows every moment I see you." Ilara swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. I don't know if I can do this." Kalen's eyes softened, but there was still a fire in them. "You have already done it simply by saving the pup. Fate does not ask for permission, Ilara. It only asks for courage." She looked around at the pack. They were not just animals. They were guardians, watchers, and something more. She could feel their attention, their intelligence, and their loyalty. It was overwhelming, but it also filled her with a strange sense of purpose. "Then, what happens now?" she asked quietly. Kalen gestured toward the forest. "You must learn. The forest is alive, and its magic flows through the pack. You will need to understand it, to respect it, to protect it. And you must trust me. I will guide you, but the path is dangerous, and there are trials ahead." Ilara nodded, holding the pup closer. She could feel its tiny heartbeat against her chest. She realized then that this little creature had changed everything. She had been chosen whether she liked it or not. For hours, Kalen guided her through the forest. He taught her to listen to the trees, to feel the currents of the river, and to sense the presence of the pack without looking. Ilara discovered a sharpness in her senses she had never known, a connection to the forest that felt both thrilling and terrifying. She could hear the whispers of the wind, feel the vibrations of the earth, and sense the wolves' movements even when they were out of sight. By evening, she was exhausted, but a strange exhilaration pulsed through her. She had never felt so alive, so connected to anything in her life. The pup followed her every step, small and trusting, while the pack watched from the shadows, silent but attentive. That night, as they returned to the cottage, Kalen stopped at the edge of the clearing. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "There are those who will not forgive the past, Ilara. The Queen's descendants seek to control the magic we protect. They will come for the pup, and they will not hesitate to strike." Ilara's stomach tightened. "Then we fight?" Kalen shook his head. "Not yet. First we must understand, the bond between you, the pup, and the pack must grow stronger. Only then will you have the strength to face what is coming." She nodded, but the unease in her chest did not fade. She had stepped into a world she could barely understand, and the weight of responsibility pressed on her. And yet when she looked at Kalen, standing tall and powerful. A strange warmth spread through her, a mixture of fear, respect, and something she could not yet name. As the moon rose high, casting silver light over the forest, the wolves gathered once more around the cottage. Their eyes glowed softly, reflecting the firelight and the moon. The pack had accepted her presence, but she sensed that this was only the beginning. The forest had awakened something ancient, and she was now part of it. Ilara held the pup close, whispering to it softly, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I will not let anything harm you." The pup nuzzled her, and for the first time since the storm, she allowed herself to feel hope. Kalen watched silently from the edge of the clearing, his form both commanding and gentle. He did not speak, but the intensity of his gaze remained, a promise of guidance and protection. The connection between them was growing, subtle and unspoken, a bond forged in the quiet of the forest and the bravery of one small act of kindness. Outside, the wolves howled together, a sound that echoed through the trees and over the river, wild and haunting. It was a song of the forest, of guardianship, of power and loyalty, and Ilara knew deep in her heart that she could never go back to her old life. Something had begun that could not be stopped. The pup, the pack, and Kalen had changed her forever, and the forest, alive with ancient magic, had chosen her for a destiny she had only just begun to understand. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. Ilara woke to the soft rustle of the pup moving beside her, and the distant calls of the wolves. Something about the forest felt alive in a new way, more awake than ever. It was as if the earth itself had drawn a deep breath and was holding it, waiting for what would come next. Kalen was already awake, standing at the edge of the clearing. His eyes scanned the forest like he could see everything at once. When he noticed her stirring, he nodded, his expression serious. "Today you will begin to understand the forest and the bond you share with the pack," he said, his voice calm but edged with authority. Ilara tightened her grip on the pup. I don't know if I'm ready." Kalen's gaze softened, but there was no mercy in it. "No one is ever ready. You are here because of your courage, not because you are perfect. Fear is natural, but you must not let it control you. The forest will test you." The wolves stirred behind them, moving as a single unit. Hundreds of eyes glimmered in the sunlight filtering through the trees. Ilara felt their presence, a warmth and power that seemed to hum in her chest. She had never felt anything like it, and a small part of her wanted to run, to return to the safety of her cottage. Yet another part of her, a deeper, braver part, pushed forward, drawn by curiosity and the strange pull she felt toward Kalen. He led her to a part of the forest she had never seen. The trees here were taller, older, their trunks thick and gnarled with age. Shadows moved unnaturally, and the air was heavy with a sweet, wild scent. A small stream cut through the clearing, its waters glinting like liquid silver. "This place is sacred," Kalen said. "It is older than any kingdom, older than any crown. Here the magic of the forest is strongest. You will begin your first trial here. The pup will help guide you, but you must rely on more than your eyes. Listen, feel, trust." Ilara nodded, though her heart pounded. She set the pup down gently, watching as it sniffed the air and padded cautiously toward the stream. She followed, feeling the ground beneath her feet, trying to sense the rhythm of the forest. The trial began almost immediately. A shadow moved across the stream, twisting unnaturally. Trees bent as if they had life of their own, and the wind whispered in voices she could almost understand. Ilara froze, unsure whether to step forward or retreat. Kalen's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Do not fight it," he said. "The forest tests those who enter it. Respect its power." A creature appeared from the shadows, not a wolf, not a human, but something in between. Its form was blurred, shifting, as if it existed between realities. It circled her, observing, waiting. Ilara's pulse raced. She remembered Kalen's words and closed her eyes, focusing on the pup's presence beside her. Its small, steady breathing anchored her, its trust giving her courage. Slowly, she opened her eyes and looked at the creature. Instead of fear, she tried to feel understanding. "I mean no harm," she whispered. The creature tilted its head, its shape flickering like smoke. Then slowly it receded into the shadows, disappearing as mysteriously as it had come. Kalen exhaled softly. "Good, you did not fight. You listened. That is the first lesson. The forest does not bend to force. It bends to respect." Ilara felt a strange pride, but also a sense of unease. Each step in the forest felt like stepping into another world, a place where time and rules were different. She realized that this trial was not only about skill, but about understanding, about seeing the forest with more than her eyes. They continued deeper into the clearing, the pup always close to her, guiding her with its small nudges and gentle barks. Soon they reached an ancient stone circle covered in moss and vines. The stones were carved with runes that glimmered faintly in the sunlight. Kalen knelt beside one of them, tracing the markings with his fingers. These stones mark the heart of the forest, he explained.
Here, the power is concentrated.
You will feel it more strongly than anywhere else. The bond with the pack will grow here, but so will the challenges. What you face in this place will test not just your courage, but your understanding of the forest's law. Ilara stepped into the circle, her feet brushing against soft moss. She could feel a tingling, a vibration that moved through her body and mingled with the rhythm of her heartbeat. The forest was speaking not in words, but in a language she could almost feel, almost understand. Suddenly the shadows shifted again, and the stone circle seemed to come alive. Figures made of light and dark danced around the edges of her vision. Some were human-shaped, some animal, and some impossible to define. Ilara felt a chill but did not move back. She focused on the pup, which pressed against her legs, urging her forward. A voice, soft and melodic, echoed in her mind. To protect the bond, you must understand it. To understand it, you must face the truth of your heart. Ilara's breath caught. She did not know whose voice it was, but it felt familiar, ancient and undeniable. Kalen's voice broke through her reverie. This is your second trial. You must walk through the illusions of the forest and confront what you fear most. Do not run. The forest will know your courage. Ilara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She felt the pup move under her hand, a tiny anchor in a world that was shifting and strange. She opened her eyes and began to walk, slowly at first, then with more confidence. Shapes moved around her, forming scenes from her past. Moments of fear, doubt, and loneliness. She saw herself as a child, lost in the woods, crying for help no one could give. She saw her small failures and her moments of hesitation. Her chest tightened, but she forced herself to step forward. Each step was an act of courage, each breath a declaration that she would not be broken by fear. The pup stayed close, its tiny presence a constant reminder of trust in life. Then the illusions shifted. Instead of past fears, she saw herself standing beside Kalen, leading the pack through the forest, protecting them, and being protected in return. She saw the bond she had begun to form, the understanding that courage was not just about facing danger, but about accepting connection, responsibility, and love in its many forms. Ilara fell to her knees, overwhelmed by emotion. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear but from understanding. She had begun to see the depth of her bond with the pack, with the pup, and with Kalen. She realized that saving the pup had not only changed the course of the forest, it had changed her. Kalen stepped into the circle beside her. You have done well, he said quietly. Few humans could have faced what you have faced. Few could have felt what you have felt and survived. The forest has accepted you. The bond has begun. Ilara looked up at him, her chest still heaving. But what now? The forest is powerful, and there are forces that will try to take the pup, aren't there? Kalen's expression darkened, and the amber of his eyes deepened. Yes, the Queen's descendants will not rest. They seek the power the pup represents, and they will come. But you are not alone. You have the pack, and you have me. Together we will protect what is ours. Ilara felt a mixture of fear and determination. The trials of the forest had shown her what courage meant, what it meant to trust, and what it meant to belong to something greater than herself. And yet she knew that the danger beyond the forest would test her even more. The pup barked softly, nudging her hand. She smiled, brushing its fur gently. We will face it together, she whispered. Kalen nodded, his gaze never leaving her, a silent acknowledgement of the growing bond between them. As the sun began to set, painting the forest in shades of gold and shadow, the pack gathered around the stone circle. Hundreds of eyes reflected the fading light, and the forest seemed to breathe with them. Ilara stood in the center, holding the pup, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. She realized that this was only the beginning. The trials of courage, understanding, and connection would continue, and the dangers beyond the forest were already moving closer. And yet, in that moment, surrounded by the wolves and the magic of the forest, she felt a sense of peace she had never known. She was no longer alone. She had been chosen, and she had chosen in return. The wind whispered through the trees. carrying a message she could feel more than hear. The forest had accepted her, and the bond had begun. But the world beyond the trees was not so kind, and shadows were gathering, waiting for the right moment to strike. The forest was alive with whispers that night. The wind carried secrets through the tall trees, and the shadows seemed deeper, darker, as if hiding more than just the unknown. Alara had grown accustomed to the forest's magic, to the subtle signals of the pack, and even to the strange pull she felt toward Kaelin. But tonight felt different, tenser, sharper, as though something beyond the trees was moving closer. Alara stood at the edge of the clearing, the pup pressed to her chest. The pack gathered around her, forming a protective circle, their eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight. Kaelin stood beside her, his figure a solid, reassuring presence. His gaze was steady, but there was a shadow behind it, a warning she could not ignore. "They are coming," Kaelin said quietly. "The Queen's descendants have learned of the pup. They seek to control the power of the forest, and they will not stop until they claim it." Ilara's heart raced. She had faced illusions, trials, and shadows within the forest, but this was different. This was real danger. Something that wanted to take the pup. Something that could harm her and the pack. She tightened her grip on the little wolf, feeling its tiny heartbeat against her chest. "What do we do?" she asked. Kaelin's eyes scanned the forest. "We do not fight them here, not yet. The forest is our ally, and it will protect us, but we must be careful. Follow me." He led her deeper into the woods, toward a hidden glade she had never seen. The path was narrow, surrounded by thick undergrowth, and the air felt heavy with magic. The wolves flanked them, moving silently, their presence comforting yet intense. Every step she took, Alara felt the forest's energy flowing through her, awakening a strength she had not known she possessed. When they reached the glade, Kaelin paused. The place was breathtaking. An open space surrounded by ancient trees, their branches entwined to form a natural dome. In the center, a small pond reflected the moonlight like a mirror. The air shimmered with magic, and Alara could feel it humming through her veins. "This will be our sanctuary for now," Kaelin said. "The forest shields us here, but the danger is close. You must be ready." Alara nodded, trying to steady her racing heart. She placed the pup down on the soft grass, and it bounded forward, exploring the glade with curiosity. The pack settled around them, their bodies tense and alert. Even in the safety of this sacred place, the tension in the air was palpable. Hours passed, and the forest remained silent. Alara tried to calm herself, to focus on the bond she had begun to form with the pack and with Kaelin. The trials she had faced earlier had taught her to listen, to feel, to trust. Now those lessons would be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. Suddenly a sound broke the quiet, a soft crunching of leaves, deliberate and careful. Ilara's eyes darted toward the edge of the glade. Shadows moved between the trees, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Figures emerged from the darkness, tall, cloaked, moving with precision. They were humans, but their presence carried an unnatural weight, a threat she could feel in her bones. Kaelin stepped in front of her, his stance protective. The wolves growled low, a sound that reverberated through the glade. Alara felt the pup tremble, and she scooped it into her arms again. The figures stopped at the edge of the clearing, their faces hidden beneath hoods, but their intent was clear. They had come for the pup. "You cannot take it," Kaelin said, his voice steady but commanding. "Leave this place." One of the figures stepped forward, and a faint glow of magic shimmered around their hands. "The pup belongs to us," a voice said, cold and sharp. "It is the key to power that should have been ours generations ago. Step aside or face the consequences." Alara felt a surge of fear, but it was quickly replaced by determination. She had learned courage in the forest, in the trials, in the bond with Kaelin and the pack. She would not allow them to take the pup. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "It is not yours. The forest has chosen it, and it will not leave." The cloaked figure raised a hand, and a wave of magic surged toward them. Kaelin moved swiftly, raising his arms, and the wolves responded instantly, forming a barrier between the intruders and the glade. The air crackled with energy, the tension almost unbearable. Alara felt the forest's pulse beneath her feet, the hum of magic in the air. She closed her eyes and focused, reaching out with her senses, connecting with the pack, the pup, and Kaelin. The magic of the forest responded. Vines twisted and grew, forming walls around the glade. Shadows shifted, creating illusions that confused the intruders. The wolves moved as one, coordinated and precise, their growls echoing like thunder. Ilara felt the power within her, a connection to the forest that was stronger than fear. She realized she was no longer just a human. She was part of the bond, part of the strength that protected this place. Kalen moved closer, his presence grounding her. "Good," he said quietly. "Feel it, trust it. Together we are stronger than they know." The intruders hesitated, their confidence shaken by the forest's response. One stepped forward again, raising their hands, but the illusions and the wolves forced them back. The fight was not over, but Ilara could feel the tide turning. The forest, the pack, and the bond she shared with them were stronger than any single threat. Minutes stretched into hours, and the intruders finally retreated, melting into the shadows of the forest. Ilara sank to the ground, the pup resting against her chest. The wolves returned to their positions around the glade, their eyes softening as they watched her. Kalen knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did well," he said, his voice low and approving. "You faced real danger and you stood your ground. The bond has grown stronger because of it." Ilara nodded, though her chest heaved with exhaustion. She had never imagined facing such danger. And yet she had survived, and more than that, she had felt the strength of the forest, the pack, and her own courage. Kalen's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the tension between them was almost tangible. There was respect, trust, and something unspoken that passed in that glance. A connection forged in danger and shared purpose, and in the quiet moments between the trials. Ilara felt a warmth in her chest, a recognition that she was not alone, and that she had found someone who would stand beside her through anything. The pup barked softly, breaking the moment, and Ilara laughed, brushing its fur gently. "You're safe now," she whispered. "We're all safe. For now." Kalen nodded, though his expression darkened slightly. "The danger is not gone. The Queen's descendants will return, stronger and more determined. But tonight, you have learned something vital. You are capable of protecting what you love, and you are not alone." Ilara looked around at the wolves, at Kalen, and at the forest itself. She felt a sense of awe and responsibility, understanding that this was more than just survival. It was guardianship. She had been chosen by the forest, and she had chosen to accept that responsibility. As the moon climbed higher, casting silver light over the glade, Ilara felt a sense of peace settle over her. The pack lay around them. The pup nestled safely in her arms, and Kalen stood nearby, watching over them with a vigilant but calm presence. The forest was alive, and she was a part of it now, its protector, its friend, and its chosen human. And yet, even in the quiet of the night, a whisper of warning lingered in the wind. The danger had not ended, and the trials ahead would test her courage, her trust, and the strength of the bond she had formed with Kalen and the pack. Ilara closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the forest beneath her feet and the warmth of the pup against her chest. Whatever came next, she knew she would face it, not alone, but together with the pack, with Kalen, and with the forest itself. The night stretched on, full of quiet magic and unspoken promises. And in the distance, beyond the trees, the faint glow of eyes, watchful, patient, and determined, hinted that the threats yet to come were already moving closer. The first light of dawn filtered through the trees, painting the forest in gold and shadow. Ilara stood at the edge of the glade, the pup safe in her arms, the pack surrounding her like living guardians. Tonight, she knew, would be the true test. The Queen's descendants had returned, more determined than ever, and their power would push her courage, her trust in Kalen, and the bond with the forest to the limit. Kalen stood beside her, his presence steady and strong. His amber eyes reflected both warning and reassurance. "They will not show mercy," he said softly. "But neither will the forest. And neither will we." Ilara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had learned courage, patience, and understanding in the trials of the forest, and now all of that knowledge would be needed. She looked down at the pup, whose small eyes met hers with trust and innocence. Her heart swelled with determination. She would protect it, no matter the cost. The forest seemed to sense the tension, the anticipation of the coming battle. Leaves trembled, shadows shifted, and the distant calls of the wolves echoed through the trees. Hundreds of eyes glimmered from the undergrowth, the pack ready to defend, to fight, and to guide. Ilara felt their energy flow through her, a connection that was stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. Then, from the edge of the glade, they appeared. The queen's descendants moved with deadly precision, cloaked in dark magic that made the air shimmer and twist. Their eyes gleamed with ambition and greed, and the power around them crackled with energy that was cold and sharp. Kalen stepped forward, his body tense and ready. "Alara," he said, "stay in the circle. Protect the pup. Trust the bond." She nodded, her pulse steadying as she placed the pup on the ground, letting it move freely but close to her. The pack responded instantly, forming a wall around her and the pup. The air grew thick with tension as the enemy advanced. The first attack came as a surge of magic, waves of energy aimed directly at the circle. Alara felt the forest respond immediately. Vines twisted and grew, forming barriers while shadows shifted to confuse and block the intruders. The wolves moved as one, coordinated and fierce, their growls resonating through the trees like thunder. Kalen moved through the chaos with fluid precision, his form shifting slightly, a faint echo of the wolf within him visible in the way he moved. Each strike, each motion was perfectly timed, protecting Alara and the pup, guiding the pack to respond in perfect harmony. Alara focused on the pup, but she also focused on the forest. She could feel the pulse of the trees, the rhythm of the earth, the flow of energy in the air. With each heartbeat, she drew strength from the bond she had formed. She felt herself connected not just to Kalen and the wolves, but to the very magic of the forest itself. One of the queen's descendants broke through the illusions, approaching with a surge of dark energy aimed at the pup. Alara's instincts took over. She reached out with the connection she felt, and the forest responded. Roots erupted from the ground, twining around the attacker's legs and holding them in place. Shadows rose, forming walls of darkness and light that separated her from danger. Kalen moved quickly, intercepting another attacker who had slipped through the defenses. His movements were swift and precise, his wolf form flickering in and out, a reminder of the power he held and the bond he shared with the forest. Alara watched, realizing that she was no longer afraid. The trials had taught her courage, the bond had taught her trust, and the pack had taught her loyalty. Now, in the face of real danger, she felt all of those lessons converge, guiding her actions and her decisions. The battle raged, a dance of magic and motion, of shadow and light. The queen's descendants were powerful, but the forest, Kalen, the pack, and Alara were united. Every movement she made, every thought she focused on, strengthened the protective energy around the pup. The wolves attacked and defended, their loyalty absolute, their presence overwhelming. Then the lead descendant, cloaked in black and wielding magic that pulsed like fire and ice, stepped forward. They raised their hands and a wave of energy surged toward the pup. Alara stepped forward, drawing from the bond in her chest, from the forest beneath her feet, from the courage Kalen had helped her discover. She extended her hands, and the forest responded as if it were her own body. Energy flowed through her, through the pack, through the trees, forming a protective shield that shimmered with silver and green light. The descendants' magic collided with hers. The force was immense, shaking the glade, twisting the air, and sending waves through the ground. Alara felt the strain, the power threatening to overwhelm her, but she held firm. She could feel the pack's strength beside her, the pup's trust, and Kalen's unwavering presence. Together they were stronger than any single threat. With a final, concentrated effort, Alara pushed back, channeling the bond of the forest, the loyalty of the pack, and the courage she had discovered within herself. The descendants staggered, their magic faltering, and then with a scream of frustration and defeat, they vanished into the shadows, their power broken, their threat ended, for now. The glade was quiet again, the forest humming softly in relief. Alara sank to her knees, the pup crawling into her lap, its small body warm and safe. The wolves relaxed around them, their eyes soft and attentive. Kalen knelt beside her, his hand brushing her hair back gently, a rare softness in his gaze. "You did it," he said quietly. "You faced true danger and you protected what was most important. The bond has grown stronger because of your courage." Alara exhaled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. She had faced magic, danger, and fear, and she had survived. More than that, she had discovered her own strength, the power of the bond, and the depth of her connection to the forest and to Kalen. The pup barked softly, and Alara laughed, brushing its fur gently. "We're safe," she whispered, "and we will protect each other no matter what comes next." Kalen's eyes met hers, amber and intense. There will always be challenges, but tonight you proved something vital. Courage, loyalty, and understanding are stronger than any magic or power that seeks to harm us. And together we are unstoppable." Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest. She had begun this journey unsure, frightened, and uncertain. Now she felt empowered, connected, and ready for whatever the future might bring. The forest, the pack, the pup, and Kaylin. They were her allies, her family, her strength. The sun rose higher, casting golden light over the glade. The forest seemed at peace, the shadows retreating, the trees standing tall and proud. Ilara stood holding the pup close. The pack gathered around her like living guardians. She looked at Kaylin, and in that moment she knew their bond had changed everything. "You have changed the forest," Kaylin said softly, "and it has changed you. The bond is complete." Ilara smiled, her heart full. She had faced trials, illusions, and real danger. She had learned courage, trust, and understanding. And she had discovered a connection that went beyond words. A bond of loyalty, protection, and something deeper, something unspoken, yet undeniable. The pup nuzzled her, and she laughed softly. "We did it," she whispered. "Together." Kaylin stepped closer, his gaze steady and unwavering. "Yes," he said. "Together." The forest seemed to respond. Leaves rustling, shadows shifting, the air alive with energy. The trials were over, but the bond, the connection, and the journey had only just begun. Ilara knew that there would be more challenges, more dangers, and more discoveries. But she also knew that she would never face them alone. The wolves howled in unison, a sound that echoed through the trees and across the river, a song of victory, loyalty, and protection. Ilara stood in the center of the glade, the pup in her arms, Kaylin at her side, and the pack around them. She felt a deep sense of peace and purpose, a knowledge that she had found her place in the forest and in the world. And as the sun climbed higher, illuminating the ancient trees and the sparkling pond, Ilara realized something she had never known before. She was no longer just a human. She was a guardian, a protector, a part of the forest, the pack, and the bond that connected them all. The forest was alive, and so was she, and together they would face whatever the future held, stronger, braver, and bound together by a bond that no power could break.